Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and welcome to a video about some cool WeakAuras. WeakAuras that I like, WeakAuras that I've been using, WeakAuras that are nice for quality of life, and WeakAuras that are great for improving your ability to do dungeons and raids, and all sorts of other content. If you're interested, I also have a document, because I get this question a lot when I'm streaming, about my UI. And this one will be updated in a way that this video, of course, can't be. But if you're interested, I'll have a link to this document below where it like kind of includes a list of like all the weak auras and stuff that I'm using and add-ons. Although sometimes stuff doesn't make it in there as well. So if you ever see a weak aura that you see me using in a video or stream, just ask me which one it is, and I will usually be able to just link it straight to you. So first off, a lot of people ask me about the stuff up in the top left of my screen when I'm out here in the world. First of all, most of this is garbage. All of it doesn't load in dungeons and raids, and I've got the treasure goblin tracker here, for instance, for the Diablo treasure goblin event thing, but this dragonflight event tracker as well, pretty situationally useful. Sometimes you'll see the community feast is about to pop and it's nice to go there. So that one is this dragonflight event tracker weak aura that will be in the description below. And so if you're interested in grabbing that, you can pick that up, and you can go in the settings and kind of change which ones show, so that it only shows the ones you might be interested in. Stuff like this Primal Storms being up is probably not something that I actually need to see anymore, which I guess is not actually a custom option for it. Maybe it is. Hang on, let's see what it's got in here. Yeah, okay, I could just load never the Primal Storms version of it. But it's still nice. I use it for the feast and the Dragonbane Keep sometimes, because sometimes I want to do my aiding the accord, and I need to do those ones. This one below it is a rare tracking weak aura. Pretty useless these days. Back when these dropped sparks at a higher rate. I actually think they dropped the new sparks at a reasonably high rate as well, but you usually just get enough of those. I feel like all my characters that are behind on sparks are just getting them from like every other key or something, so I don't think it's a big deal. But this is a pretty cool weak aura that would track the next of the rares that spawn on this like 30-minute cycle out in the world. And you could click on this waypoint button as well, and it'll link you to, if you have TomTom, another add-on that's actually really good. It works with some of the other weak auras I'll show later as well. It would give you a little arrow to go towards where it is. So another cool one, the 30-minute rare weak aura. They'll also be in the description below. All of these will be in the description below in the order that they're mentioned in this video, and I'll try and say the name as well. Then we have stat tracking up in the top left. This is not a weak aura that I use at all. I have that up there because I stream and because people ask me what my stats are and stuff all the time, so I just put it up there so that people can see. But that is a weak aura that is for you guys, not for me. Similarly, if you see me pressing buttons and having my abilities show up here, this is actually not a weak aura that shows what ability I just used, but this is the Details Streamer plugin that if you have details, you can just enable in the details options. That also is, streamer. Like this is good for streamers, and it's actually good for non-streamers if you ever record your footage and want to look back and analyze your gameplay. It can be really nice to have something like this that shows you what abilities you press. Some people even take this to a further extreme and show it for their whole group as well, which you can get add-ons to do as well if you're like in a high M+ push team and you wanna record VODs so you can watch stuff back and improve. Okay, here is a crest/flightstone/fragments tracker that can be nice to see how you're doing on all of the different crest types against their caps. At this point in the season, the cap, like the 750 and 900 caps, are basically irrelevant for all four types of fragments. It's very hard to have 750 of any type of fragments and need any more of them, so that part can kind of be ignored, although it was sort of useful early in the season. And it can also show you at a quick glance just how many of each type you have, both in your bags and how many you have enough fragments to make. So I have 15 Drake crests in my bags, and I have 54 fragments, which is enough to make 3 more. So if I click on this, you'll see this turning to 16 plus 2, and then 17 plus 1, and then just 18 plus 0. So a nice little tracker for that. Something that is sort of useful and may be useful again for future seasons, but it'll probably need to be updated for whatever the next season's currencies are. Kind of a first few weeks of the season type of weak aura. Here is a one for dungeon, or for profession knowledge. So this one is pretty cool. It will show you all of your available weekly sources of profession knowledge. And if you use this TomTom add-on, you can also get waypoints from this as well. So if you left-click this, it will actually put on your map all of the different sources of your knowledge including the ones that drop from mobs. It'll put suggestions for where you can go to kill mobs that will drop the correct enemies. It'll give you this Dragon Shard of Knowledge waypoint. If you have a Dragon Shard in your bags, it will tell you to, go and turn it in, which obviously you may not actually want to do that if you're hoarding those Dragon Shards of Knowledge and you don't know which profession you want to use them in yet or something like that. And you can turn off in the options for this WeakAura. It's actually very powerful. You have the ability to like do all kinds of different stuff in the custom options here, turn off certain ones. If for some reason one of them is buggy or something for you, you can turn it off as well. So it's very cool. I've turned off the Forbidden Reach rares, for instance, on all my professions because I didn't want that to be on this list. But yeah, you could do that with the Niffin ones as well if you didn't like that, or the Barter Brick ones or anything like that. So pretty cool one for seeing what, if you have characters that you care about getting profession knowledge on, this WeakAura is actually really, really good for that. Okay, so that's some quality of life WeakAuras that I have up in the top left of my screen. Another one in the top middle here is a dragon riding UI, which you can use, actually when you open up your WeakAuras page, it turns into the default one. But if you want instead this kind of stylized one, this dragon riding UI, you can get that. I guess not stylized, but kind of more utilitarian. This one's pretty nice because it will show you your speed as a % here, and it'll show you whether you are at or above the Thrill of the Skies speed. There you go. Now it's turned green, which means I'm gaining vigor. And then the vigor bar is below, and you can see it updates nicely there. And then the second bar, the bar between the amount of vigor I have and my speed, is your acceleration. So you start going up, you can see, oh, acceleration's getting bad, right? Uh-oh, we're not accelerating anymore, we're stalling out. And now we've stopped decelerating, and we're at neutral on acceleration. We start going down, and all of a sudden the acceleration goes way up, until eventually, we reach maximum diving speed and acceleration levels out. So, pretty useful little way to kind of track your dragon riding status and speed and stuff. A little bit more powerful than the default vigor bar. A little bit more ugly, some would say as well. Although, I actually quite like the way that it looks. But you may prefer the art version that the game launches with. So, use at your discretion. Up next, I just want to answer a common question about the middle of my screen. All of my characters, I have the Afanar WeakAura pack in the middle of my screen. This is one of several good WeakAura HUDs that you can use to track all of your ability CDs, and it's, I would say, generally very good. There's a couple of classes where it's kind of, maybe not updated super quick, or there's something weird about it that you need to change. Like some classes that can have cooldowns proc, but also you need to track their cooldowns. The way that this thing works is if you look at my recklessness here, if I press recklessness, it's going to, instead of showing me the cooldown, show me the duration left on my recklessness. And that's great. Normally that's something that's really good to track. But sometimes you want to track both the cooldown and the duration of something, in which case you need to modify this WeakAura pack to do that. For me, that's happened a lot with Demon Hunter. Various demonic talents have been good at different times and have given you free metas. But I also wanted to know when my next meta is, even when I'm in those demonic metas. So I would add an extra WeakAura that just always tracked the cooldown, for instance. And that can be something you can do to make this a little bit more powerful, because sometimes there are some weird stuff. There's some weird stuff that goes on with certain talents and stuff. Also, it doesn't always track the new tier sets and everything. With talent adjustments being as frequent as they are, sometimes you need to go in and just do some tweaking and make sure that it is going to work for you. But I love just having this for all of my specs as kind of a default UI package in the middle of your screen. You don't have to use it. You can just always use action bars in the middle of your screen. You can use Luxthos's WeakAuras, which are also very good and accomplish a similar goal. Or you can make your own WeakAura packs that do basically the same stuff here. And you could just make ones that show you cooldowns for all your buttons and then give you buffs for all the buffs you want to track up above it. And I like the way that Afanar I like in general how it shows you duration of buff and cooldown of buff on the same icon, but again, that is a downside depending on which sort of ability it is, if it's something that you care about both, and it randomly procs or whatever, or extends, or has cooldown reduction effects, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, just below my health bar, I have a potions and racials and trinkets frame, which I really like. I like tracking all that there. This one is really cool. So it's this hijack racials, consumables, and trinkets. Unfortunately, if you have a bunch of extra rank 1 potions and stuff in your bag, it's going to show you all of them. So what I did is I disabled almost all of the potions in this WeakAura, and I just have it showing me my like Potion of Ultimate Power CD and number that I have in my bags, because I don't want this to be like I don't want it to show me, oh, I have these 70 potions in my bags. I just want to know my potion CD. So I changed it around a little bit so it would do that. And it would also, I guess, show me if I ever ran out of the whichever potion I'm actually primarily using. But that's nice. And then seeing Health Pot, Health Stone as well, Racials, Trinkets can be really good as well. Okay. Next one is actually Dungeon and Raid WeakAuras. So obviously you can get by with big wigs and little wigs and get a lot of value out of that. But there are a lot of really good WeakAuras that will make you more effective in Dungeons and Raids. The one that I'd like to recommend for Raid is the Liquid WeakAura pack. So Liquid Avarice, really good for mythic progression, gives you a bunch of different effects. Every single boss has these different effects. These are pretty much just the WeakAuras that Liquid used. There are a few that they use that aren't in here, but almost everything is. And they fall into these general categories of bars, lists, icons, circles, texts that would show you, what different thing is going on. What I will say about the Liquid WeakAura pack is you should go in and just disable, set all the lists to load never. All the lists, which reminds me I need to do that for Magma X because for some reason that changed. The lists are bad. You don't need those usually, unless you like the lists for some reason. You usually don't need these things. You can just set those things to load never and be pretty happy. An exception is the Neltharion. If you're doing Neltharion mythic progression, you may want the private aura list that Neltharion has if you're not using like the BDG Angered WeakAura for that fight. But otherwise, yeah, it is those are usually not super necessary. And then, so another thing about the Liquid WeakAura pack is that to move them, rather than moving the WeakAuras individually, what's much better is to download this other WeakAura called Liquid Anchors. And in Liquid Anchors, you can actually move around different bars. You can move around either all the bars or bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, and then each of the bars on a certain fight will be either a bar 1, a bar 2, or a bar 3, and you can then move it. Rather than moving for every single fight all of the WeakAuras that fight, you can instead use the Liquid Anchors pack and move all of them for all fights to wherever you want them generally to be, and kind of set it up like a boss mod rather than like a bunch of WeakAuras. And in theory, this should work for future raids. A downside of this is that it only gets released after Liquid clears the raid, a little bit after Liquid clears the raid usually, which depending on the raid tier, if that's like Sepulcher, it takes a long time for that to get released, and you're gonna have to do a lot of early progression without it. But in shorter tiers, you can get these things pretty early into the tier, and they are very good. There are also the Echo WeakAuras that are available through the add-on Echo Raid Tools. So if you have Echo Raid Tools as a separate add-on, you'll then get an extra option in your adventure guide, and that option will let you go and download the WeakAuras for that raid. I don't actually know if I have it installed, because... no, I don't on this computer, so... it is something, though, if you want the Echo ones instead, or if the Echo ones come out first, because at least last race, Echo released them as they killed each boss. So in early progression, I was using the Echo ones because, they were releasing them when they killed the boss. And then once the Liquid pack was released, I just switched over to that because they were, nicer, prettier, and I think a little bit better overall. Okay, Dungeons, on the other hand. So there's this big WeakAura pack called Dragonflight Season 2 Dungeons that will show you just a bunch of what to do for different mechanics in the dungeons. Great WeakAura pack. Gives you a lot of info. You can turn off a lot of these different effects if you don't think you're going to need them, but there's a lot of really nice warnings in here that can be really good for certain mechanics, and a lot of them have sounds associated with them as well. There's a pretty consistent through line of this sound usually means this thing. You can also grab spell CDs on nameplates for Dragonflight Season 2, which will put spell CDs on nameplates if you have nameplates turned on. This will put the spell CDs on nameplates for certain important spells that you want to track, which can be very, very nice. So absolutely something to, right? You can see just all these different effects that it is tracking in Underrot, for instance, and it will show you on the nameplates of the mobs that cast them how long until it will next cast it. Very powerful way to keep track of those things. Another Mythic Plus WeakAura that you might want is the Auto Marker. So the M Plus Auto Marker is something that will let you just automatically mark mobs with different marks. You can turn on or off certain ones. It will usually do it by either mousing over or getting in combat with mobs. You can change it, though, so that it only works if you're the leader. You can change it so that it requires shift. You can make it always mark your tank with a certain mark as well. And if you have this on, it'll be really easy to go into a poll and then just say something like, all right, you kick Moon. I'll kick diamond, something like that, rather than having, if you have two mobs with the same name, for instance, or even multiple mobs with different names, it can just be really nice to have a world marker on the ones that are going to do casts, right? That are going to do important things that you need to stun or interrupt and stuff. And if there's any of these that you feel like you don't need, you can go ahead and uncheck them, and they won't get full of marks. Okay. The next one for M+ is dungeon teleport buttons. So I don't know, I downloaded this a couple weeks ago. I don't know if there's a better one yet. This one is kind of annoying because it comes with like a bunch of meme names for the different dungeons. So I had to go into the custom options and like change them so that they were just nice, not memes that actually described what the dungeon, or actually said the name of the dungeon, because a few of them were kind of unclear. But yeah, this one is really nice. In your dungeons page, it will give you these buttons that let you teleport to whichever dungeon teleport unlocks. Oops, I've gotten in combat. Whichever dungeon teleports you have access to, it will add them to this part of your screen here. So there's another add-on, I think, that's putting these score things here. It's not that WeakAura. In fact, M+ Display is the WeakAura that puts the score and the tyrannical and fortified numbers on your dungeon page. So that's another nice and useful one that you might be interested in. All right, and finally, I have a Snitch WeakAura. A WeakAura that will let you know if people in your group are low on durability, if they're missing enchants, or if they're missing gems. So this is group durability, gems, enchants checker. So the way it works is that when a ready check happens, it will look through your raid and see if somebody is wearing super low eye level stuff, which will trigger on all my alts incorrectly, but it can be useful in raid because it'll trigger if somebody's wearing like the Orgrimmar teleport cloak, which somebody in my raid was on Queen Ajara farm, for instance. And that can be nice to detect with this. But it'll also detect if, like, hey, this person's missing, like, a boot enchant or something, which some people don't have UIs that makes it easy for them to see that, and so you can see this, and it gives you an option to click a button to announce it, or you can just whisper them, or if you're in, like, a pug or something, you don't care, you just ignore it. But it's a nice little thing to have if you're, like, doing mythic progression or whatever, to just make sure that it's being good. It automatically happens on a ready check. You can also use MRT to do a similar functionality as well, but I feel like this WeakAura is a pretty nice way to do it, and it works in dungeons very nicely. It just works automatically on ready check. So I also mostly use it on my own, for my own character's sake, to see if I'm missing enchants or gems or whatever. Because sometimes you make an upgrade and you forget to enchant, right? Like right now I have unenchanted boots that I could easily forget, an unenchanted chest piece, and this WeakAura will pop up and let me know in my chat box if that happens when we're ready checking, and usually only ready check when there's about to be content that you actually care about being enchanted for, which is perfect. So that is some of the WeakAuras and stuff that I use that people ask me about. Hopefully one of the ones in this video was interesting or useful to you, something that you found helpful. If you did, hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment below. Comment below with the useful, cool WeakAura that you have that I don't. And maybe we can all, exchange some cool WeakAuras. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.